Playing Pokemon Leaf Green as a child, my first Pokemon game ever, I got stuck in Mount Moon. It took me months to figure out how to progress through that cave, and I ended up leaving that place with a level 42 Charizard. Honestly, I'm surprised I didn't end the entire population of Zubats in that cave because I must have killed thousands. Now you might be asking, how did it take you months to get out of one of the easiest caves in all of Pokemon? Well, firstly, I was a stupid child, but the real answer is that when I was even younger, I was being babysat, and I was watching my babysitter play Pokemon Blue. This babysitter happened to be at Mount Moon, and they told me, be careful with the ladders, because if you go down a ladder, you might get lost. As you may know, the only way to progress through Mount Moon is to go down a ladder. So I don't really know why he told me that, but I took it to heart. Years later, when I did get my own copy of the Pokemon game, when I got to Mount Moon, I refused to go down any ladders. And I just spent the next few months on my Game Boy, killing Geodudes and Zubats on the first floor of Mount Moon. And you know what? I technically never got lost. I just didn't make any progress, but I never got lost. And yeah, of course I eventually did make it out of Mount Moon. Probably boredom eventually gave me enough courage to go down a ladder. And with a level 42 Charizard when everything else is around level 12, the rest of that game was an absolute breeze, at least until the Elite Four. I pretty much only used my Charizard all the way through the entire game. Anyways, welcome to a ranked Pokemon Auto Chess game. I don't hit anything substantial in the first 3 rounds of the game, and I also don't have the best components for an early game win streak. But in my Stage 4 shop, I am seeing a Marill, and I already have a Pichu. This is potentially a baby start. We also unfortunately have a player drop out of the game, but that's okay. It just means we'll have to play a little bit faster than usual. Anyways, because my item components are quite weak and I already have 2 babies, I decided to start this game with a baby opener. I level up to level 4 to have better odds of finding a baby in the shop, and with 1 roll, I'm able to find a Magby. Realistically, I was looking for an Igglybuff, but Magby's gonna work just fine. And because I'm level 4, I'm likely gonna be 1 unit ahead of other players. So to make up for that, I'm gonna position my babies in this very awkward 4 corners, space them out as far as possible so they're more likely to get focused down one by one. And yeah, that's gonna work out just fine. We're against a water team with an evolution and itemization. And while I lose this battle, I'm gonna quickly scout through my opponents, look for other baby players or perhaps any open fort players. There are some other baby players with really weak baby teams, but there are more players who aren't running a baby team, and I'm okay to take my chances to not queue up against one of those baby players. I mean, there's no reason to just abandon my baby streak just yet. I didn't get lucky with my first loss, but as I keep losing more and more, the odds will increase. And with 4 baby Pokemon out on my board, I have some pretty good odds of finding an egg on the next loss. Unfortunately, my next matchup is against the weak baby player. With Magby, I easily win that match even if my units are positioned very poorly, and that's going to reset my chance of obtaining an egg. Definitely not what you'd like to see, but that's okay, we'll run it back against another baby team, but this one is backed by an evolved Lairon, and that's going to be more than enough to knock my team out. With that loss, we miss out on getting lucky once again. Now, I could use my components to make a lucky egg and slightly increase my odds of obtaining an egg with my babies, but it also gives a lot of stats and that's going to make my baby team slightly stronger. I don't want to risk winning another round, so we'll just keep going as is. In fact, after I scout another player going babies, I decide to really just make sure that I lose and sell off 2 of my baby Pokemon. This is pretty much the weakest team possible that I could run with baby 3, and selling off that 4th baby does technically decrease my odds of obtaining an egg, but if I'm unlucky and match up against the really weak baby team, I really need to maximize my odds of losing, because not hitting any eggs and interrupting your loss streak twice with a baby opener would be an extremely weak and scuffed start, especially in a 7-player game. Thankfully, this round was a very comfortable loss, and we're even able to pick up an egg, and this egg contains the recently nerfed Grubbin. I don't really care about those nerfs, I think it's still a good unit, and watching the ad picks slowly trickle in, I noticed someone adds Joltik, which happens to be Grubbin's best friend. That pretty much tells me to try to build a team around Grubbin. The easiest answer is an electric team with Joltik and Grubbin, and with 1 more round in the early game, there's no reason not to run babies. Just want to keep my loss streak going to maximize my gold. If I'm lucky, I could obtain another egg, or I could potentially run into the baby player that I have not yet faced, and hopefully interrupt their loss streak because I think my team is a little bit weaker. Unfortunately, I end up just facing a bug flying team. That's definitely going to be another loss for me. And unfortunately, I am not able to pick up a final egg, and now we have Gyarados to worry about. Gyarados would absolutely destroy my baby team, so I need to find some strong units that'll be able to handle Gyarados. Easiest way is to find 2 ghost units, but I'm also interested in making an electric portal appear. Thankfully, rolling through the shop, I'm able to evolve myself a Marill, whose ability is fantastic support for taking down Gyarados. I'm also able to fit in 2 additional electric units in Magnemite and Pawmi, and thankfully, I'm able to sell all the leftovers on my bench to get back to 50 gold. I also make myself an upgrade and throw that on my Marill. It's going to be useful for an electric team in the future. And yeah, that's going to be enough to take down Gyarados. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the poor Aegislash player who I did catch losing to Gyarados. I'm sorry, buddy, it happens to the best of us. Now, for the unique portal carousel, there's only 1 electric symbol, and I really want it, but it's moving away from my character. I might have been able to claim it if I chased it, but unfortunately I did this portal micro quite poorly and it gets stolen away from me. So plan B is this artificial portal, because even if I don't hit an electric unique, I can at least get some pretty nice overlap with artificial in the form of Elekid. But you know what? Why don't I just get lucky and find myself an electric unit anyways? Because I'm able to pick up Iron Hands. Iron Hands is great. It excels at everything except for having an interesting name. It is a tanky frontline electric fighting artificial unit, a great slew of synergies, and its ability is very nice damage. And let's talk about the synergies that I'm running in my early mid-game team. Obviously, the main focus is electric synergy. With electric 3 synergy active, every 4th auto attack on my electric units will be tripled. Iron Hands and Pawmi give me fighting 2 synergy. That's going to give them flat damage blocked. And scouting through my opponents, I'm noticing a lot of physical damage. 2 teams running flying, including the player in first place who has yet to lose. And not wanting to lose any more HP, as I've pretty much started the game with a loss streak, I make myself a Rocky Helmet, which is a very strong boost in defense as well as negating critical hits. Unfortunately, I don't equip it just yet. I'm not absolutely certain where that's going to go. But it's not going to matter because the first team that I face is going to be a Baby 7 team. And as much as I'd like to lose this round, just to deny that Baby 7 player their egg, my team is definitely strong enough to beat that Baby 7 team. Alright, let's talk about this next Pokemon item draft. The item component that I want is a Charcoal, but Amora is a very strong fossil unit, and I really don't want to give anyone the tools of assembling a really strong fossil team. But looking at the ad picks this game, not a single fossil unit has been added, so a single Amora is not really going to help anyone. I'm pretty comfortable with adding it to the game, and I'm pretty certain that it's not going to come back and bite me. Anyways, I am able to hit level 6 this round, and I do decide to spend a little bit of money into rolling, just for tempo purposes. I'm already a little bit behind in terms of HP, and fortunately, I'm able to find myself an artificial unit in Burmy. That activates Artificial 2 synergy, giving me an extra item in Macho Brace. It gives fighting synergy and some attack while also reducing speed. I usually don't like this item because I don't like the speed reduction, and Artificial usually doesn't have much overlap with fighting, but it's not bad with Iron Hands, who does have fighting synergy. We'll throw that on our Pichu as we take on this flying team. And I've also equipped my Iron Hands with the Rocky Helmet, making it much tankier. And that ended up being the perfect decision for me, because not only does my Iron Hands survive the entire fight, it was able to block 442 damage for my team. Like, if you want to rewatch this fight, just see how many damage indicators read 1 or 2 that bounce off of my Iron Hands. Anyways, the next item carousel is Kecleon, who sells Synergy Stones. This seems great for me because I can pick up that Electric Stone and continue to run Artificial Electric. But unfortunately, the only Electric Stone gets taken away by the player in last place. So now, I'm wondering if I should even take a stone at all. And ultimately, I do decide to pick up a Dawnstone because there is some nice psychic overlap with Artificial. And also in this round, my Grubbin hatches. That's my cue to sell off the Marill that I've been using. And by replacing it with Grubbin, I now have Electric 5 synergy. Now every 3rd auto attack is going to be tripled. And because I have another bug unit in Burmy, I also have Bug 2 synergy, which is going to spawn an itemless clone of one of my bug units. At the moment, that's going to be my Grubbin, who is not very strong, but in the late game, once it evolves into Vikavolt, that's pretty much going to mean 2 Vikavolts. And before we get into the next round, I scout the player that stole my Thunderstone, and uh-oh, they have a very similar game plan as me, but they've also already obtained their Golden Egg with a lot of health to spare. So this is definitely going to be the team to look out for moving forward. Anyways, this round we're against a water team that's already hit a lot of evolutions. Unevolved electric Pokemon are especially bad against tanky units like this Marshtomp with a muscle band. And while Rocky Helmet does offer a lot of protection against a lot of these teams, it unfortunately does not do much against a Wartortle with a Soldew. And yeah, a pretty comfortable win for my opponent here. In the next round, I am able to evolve my Pawmi into Pawmo, I'm not too familiar with this Pokemon, but I do think that it's hilarious how as it evolves, it pretty much just stays the same, but it just gets bigger. Like, he's pretty much just the same guy, but now he's standing up. And the next one in the evolutionary line is pretty much just the same thing, but just a little bit bigger. This is the kind of Pokemon design that I want in the game. Enough of your weird robot humanoids and multicolored fish head things. Just give us more pudgy guinea pigs that get bigger. Anyways, here is a weird team that doesn't really have much identity. I'm not entirely sure what they're building towards, but it's certainly not working right now as my team easily cleans up. Oh, and I should also mention that I'm going to use the damage block tab in the damage chart for a bit. Usually I like to see the damage dealt, but because I have the Rocky Helmet and Fighting Synergy active, I think it'll be interesting to see how much health I'm preserving with all of those items and synergies. And as we continue along here, I'm looking to level up, picking up whatever strong artificial or electric units that I can, starting with this Electrike, who is going to take the place of Pichu. This round we're also taking on Mewtwo and Mew, who pose no problem at all. As a reward, I'm able to grab myself a magnet, which I can combine into a punching glove for my Grubbin. It's a great item for electric synergy because its on-hit effect can be tripled. And this round, as I hit level 7, I decide to spend a little bit of money, just trying to really make sure that my team is strong enough to win these upcoming rounds. With a temporary Torchic in play, I'm able to get Fighting 4 synergy, which is going to mean even more damage blocked for my fighting units. I also find the very useful Elekid, who has the exact synergies that I want to work with. And approaching the end of the round, you know what's even better than a 3-cost Torchic? A 4-cost Bounce Suite. And since this is a temporary unit, I'll just throw a bunch of items on it. We've got a Soul Dew that I've crafted, as well as the Psychic Stone that I bought. And here we go, we're taking on the flying team that had at one point been in first place. Our fighting frontline is proving to be very effective at mitigating lots of damage. Meanwhile, our Grubbin in the backline is very well protected and dealing tons of damage with its items. After a lot of scattering around the board, our electric team is able to take down my opponent's flying team. And very quickly, our mid-game team is becoming very strong. And nothing happens this round, I'm just trying to recover some of the money that I've spent. We're taking on a very strong Dark Ghost team with a Banette and a Goldango. Unfortunately, my backline is not very well protected against Dark units, and I don't have any Rune Protect for the Ghost Curses, so unfortunately this Ghost Dark team is going to very quickly melt away my team. We'll definitely need to find some Rune Protect and position accordingly for that team in the future. But regardless, here is an item component carousel where I will be moving second last. A little reactionary, but I really want a Heart Scale to make a Fluffy Tail, which thankfully I am actually able to pick up. This round, my Grubbin also evolved into Charge-a-Bug, and I'll go ahead and make that Fluffy Tail, throw that on my temporary Bounce Suite. That also means my final item is going to be a Shiny Charm, which is a pretty nice item for an artificial team, just guaranteed tankiness for my front line, keeping my back line safe for longer. This round, we're taking on the other electric player. They have Light Synergy as their main side synergy. They also have the shiny item Gold Bottle Cap, which can be very devastating to face, but thankfully I've got a very bulky Iron Hands with that Rocky Helmet. That's able to negate a lot of extra crit damage. Rocky Helmet is pretty much exactly what I need to take down that opponent. In my next shop, I'm able to find myself a Beldum, which is exactly what I need. Not only does that bring me to Artificial 4, but alongside my Psychic Stone, I'm able to hit Psychic 2 synergy. Artificial 4 synergy is going to give me another item in the form of Big Nugget. That gives great defenses as well as some potential money gain. And with Artificial 4 synergy active, all my artificial Pokemon will be dealing more damage with items equipped. So aside from my backline carry Charge-a-Bug, I want to put all my items on my artificial units in order to maximize the bonuses that come from their synergy. For now, let's take on this other flying team that seems to have spent all their money rolling for 3-star 1-cost units. And even though they've hit a bunch of them, they're super behind in levels and my team just completely overwhelms them. And as we continue to push towards level 8 for the late game, we've got Lugia and Ho-Oh as well as our legendary pick coming up. And my current team is pretty flexible. I could go either way with artificial or electric. I would love to be able to find a Genesect to run Bug 4 synergy alongside Joltik in the future, but I'm pretty happy to take literally any electric or artificial unit. Whatever legendary I get, I will use that to influence my decisions moving forward, and I could shape out my team with artificial or electric. For defeating Lugia and Ho-Oh, my item is going to be a Choice Scarf, which is not the best, but it does work pretty nicely with what my Charge-a-Bug currently has. There's a good number of electric portals in the legendary carousel, and I'm able to grab one that has an artificial symbol as well as a bug symbol, which is pretty good because my dream legendary is Genesect. Unfortunately, I don't find the Genesect, but I do find an electric artificial unit in Xurkitree, and even though I don't think it's the most effective artificial legendary, it does have the perfect synergies for my team. It's got a pretty interesting effect where its attacks deal special damage instead of physical damage, and its attacks also scale with ability power, which makes it pretty effective at using that Psychic Stone. And to really make my team strong going into the late game, I decide to level up to level 8, where I can now slot in my Honedge for Artificial 6 synergy. That gives me a third artificial item in Light Ball, which is going to go on my Xurkitree for even more ability power, and my artificial units are going to be even stronger for every held item, and just before the round starts, I use a Ditto to evolve my Elekid into Electabuzz. This gives me Human 2 synergy, which is just a little extra healing on my Electabuzz and Xurkitree. With that, we'll take on the water team that I previously lost to. They have a lot of full evolutions, as well as multiple Soldews in their backline. My opponent's damage melts through most of my front line, but not the Electabuzz, who's able to go invincible thanks to that Shiny Charm. And my Charjabug and Xurkitree stay pretty healthy, and are able to take down my opponent's team. And as we continue along, my next shop has Porygon show up. Porygon is an incredible artificial unit, and I definitely want to use it, but I only need 6 artificial units, so I'm trying to figure out the best artificial unit to replace with Porygon. Ultimately, I decide that with Joltik, I don't need a Burmy for Bug Synergy, so I do a few swaps with my team. I drop the Pomo, replacing it with Joltik, and then I swap out Burmy with Porygon, and I was also able to evolve my Honedge into Doublade. Here, we're taking on a Psychic Artificial team. A lot of burst damage coming from my opponent's Mewtwo, who's able to hit multiple targets at once, but with a lot of tanky frontline units. My Electabuzz is able to run through my opponent's team, making pretty good use out of its Soldew, and this win will knock another player out of the game. And in the next item carousel, a lot of pretty good items, but I actually want the Dawnstone, which will allow me to splash Psychic onto another Pokemon. And with that, if I do hit level 9, I can slot in a 4th Psychic unit and hit Psychic Force Energy. Regardless, this round my Charjabug evolves fully into Vikavolt, which is going to be another spike in power for my team, which is already really strong. And I'm also thinking about trying to fit in this Golett into my team. With that, I can get Ground 2 and Ghost 2 synergy, but I'm not certain that there's any Pokemon that I actually want to replace with it. At least not for when I do hit level 9 and slot in my 4th Psychic unit. But for now, while I am level 8, I can run it in place of Beldum, and we'll try it out against this Flying 8 team. It's hard to keep any specific Pokemon safe while your opponent's team is just taking off and dive bombing across your team. The Enamorus in the backline is also dealing lots of damage with its ability power items, but thankfully my Iron Hands remains super tanky, and my Xurkitree was able to avoid a lot of dive bombs, and eventually my opponent runs out of flying bombs, and that's going to be another round 1 for me. And as we continue along, I pick up a second Beldum and a second Golett. The shop is showing that I can evolve both of them, but that's actually not there. I actually just bought those 2 units, and this is a visual bug that happens occasionally. Not much else happens this round, but I do know I'll be facing the electric team pretty soon. Just paying attention to the battle order, it's very likely to be this one or the next one. So preemptively, I'm trying to have my Iron Hands take the aggro of that Vikavolt, just to try to minimize the amount of damage that it does with that golden bottle cap. I didn't do it exactly right, as the Vikavolt does take on the Doublade, but once it switches targets to the Iron Hands, my opponent's damage output is severely lowered. A lot of my units are able to just barely survive and push forward, which wins me this round. And thank God for those Zapdos nerfs. Anyways, now we've got a PvE round. I'm pushing towards level 9, and having beaten everyone in the late game except for that Cubchoo player, I am now sitting in first place with a sizable lead, so no reason to spend all of my money yet. For taking down the legendary birds, I decide to grab myself a max revive, as that's going to go on my Iron Hands, making it even more unkillable than it already is. And I'll repurpose the big nugget onto my Porygon. Now we're taking on the Dark Ghost team, and admittedly my team is a little bit out of position. Most of my front line gets taken down pretty quickly, but even through Ghost Curses, my Vikavolt in the backline is dealing tons of damage, and once my Iron Hands makes its way over and starts taking aggro, it's able to eat up so much damage and negate statuses with its fluffy tail. There's really not much my opponent's Dark Ghost team can do to that Iron Hands, and unfortunately for them, we'll be knocking out another player from the game. In the next round, I decide to finally go up to level 9 as we're approaching the end game. Despite my team being very strong, there are still some evolutions that I need to hit, and I'm still trying to figure out how I want to round out my team. I've already talked about the possibility of Psychic 4, but there's also potential in going for Ghost or Light synergy. In fact, I find in my shop the very strong late game unit Shinx, and I decide to throw that in right now for Light 2 synergy, giving me a light spot where I can power up one of my units with more damage. I also find a Shuppet in the shop, which makes me think about going for Ghost 4. I'll have to swap around my units, but basically I have a lot of options here. For now, we're taking on the water team, and I've positioned very poorly for this. My units group up extremely awkwardly for my opponent's Volcanion to do tons of damage. They also get lined up awkwardly for my opponent's Drizzle to hit multiple targets at once. I was too preoccupied with trying to figure out my endgame team, and that resulted in very bad positioning and a pretty bad loss. But thankfully, we had the health to spare. For now, here is another item carousel. I would really like to pick up that X-ray vision, but unfortunately so do both of my opponents. In fact, because they both went for it, I'm actually able to grab the next best thing in the form of upgrade. And as my shop is giving me a Solosis, I decided to just go with my original plan of getting Psychic 4. I replaced my Shinx with Solosis, and I can also put Beldum back in place of Golett, and we can throw the upgrade on Xurkitree, since it has those very strong special damage dealing auto attacks. And here we go, Artificial 6, Electric 5, and Psychic 4 synergy. A little bit of repositioning, a little bit of re-rolling. I'm eventually able to evolve myself a Porygon 2, as well as a Metang, but not before the battle starts. We are against the ghost of our electric opponent. It looks like they've opted to sell their Vikavolt and repurpose its items onto Zapdos, which is definitely not a bad idea considering Zapdos can easily take down my back line. But ultimately, it doesn't matter as I win this fight, and the water player also gets knocked out of the game. That's pretty much the perfect outcome for me, because now I don't even have to worry about positioning for that water team. Unless I get very unlucky with that Zapdos, it's looking to be a win for me. But before we get to our eventual final matchup, we've got to take down this PvE round, where I decide to grab a Wonder Box, just trying to maximize artificial synergy item bumps. We can throw that onto my Porygon 2 and also repurpose the Big Nugget onto my front line. And look at this, I'm repositioning my team in a very awkward way, but pretty much just to guarantee that the Zapdos forces its targeting onto the Iron Hands. Pretty much just doing everything I can to minimize that Zapdos' auto attack damage. I also decide to use my 2 Dittos on my Solosis, evolving myself a Duosian. With that, I pretty much have 5 backline carries, if you do want to include that cloned Vikavolt. And that's just going to be way too many targets for my opponent's Zapdos to be able to hit with its ability. And my Iron Hands is pretty much guaranteed to draw that Zapdos' auto attacks. It only took like 10 damage per auto attack. All of this makes for an extremely easy final matchup against a very scary electric team. And with that, we have a first place. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next game.